Hello, welcome to Aircraft Maintenance Practices Unit 3 lecture. Aircraft fasteners. They are to be correctly selected and used as per the requirement of Aircraft Maintenance Manual and Illustrated Part Catalog. Only hardware with traceability to an approved manufacturing process or source should be used on aircraft installation. By the end of this lesson, students should be able to know the standard and classification of threads used for aircraft bolts and nuts, identify and interpret coded specification AN, MS, and NAS on aircraft bolts, nuts, and locking devices. Select, install, and remove threaded fasteners such as bolt or review slides. Screw thread terminology, which was covered in your year 1. Over here we have external thread, where there are minor diameter of the thread, pitch diameter of the thread, and major diameter. We have the screw thread and the thread angle, the clasp and the root of the thread. Internal thread, which is the female part. Alright, we also have a pitch distance, the thread angle, the crest, and the root for the internal thread, which is known as a female, and over here external thread. Left hand and right hand threads. 90% of aircraft fasteners utilize right hand thread. To tighten a right hand thread fasteners, clockwise, while loosening will be anti-clockwise. Left hand threads is much less commonly used. To engage it, you have to turn it anti-clockwise, and to loosen it is clockwise. So it's opposite of right hand thread. Right hand thread is used where turnbuckle and cable fitting attachment. Thread classification. V-shaped thread form, and it is most commonly used. ISO isometric thread indicated by M. American National is NC, NF, and so on. British Standard Whitworth is denoted by BSW, BSF, BSP, and so on. In 1968, America, Britain, and Canada agreed to adopt the Unified National Thread (UNC-UNF) as a common thread manufacturing. Do take note that the thread angle for metric and Unified National Thread is 60 degree, while Whitworth, the British standard, utilized 55 degree. All right. So UNJF is the type of screw thread that has the most fatigue resistance. So this is another slide talking about Unified National Thread, which agreed by USA, Britain, and Canada. So it makes manufacturing and purchasing easy. So this is the specific part number, okay, half-13 UNC-2B. USA represent the types of threads available. So this is class 2 fit internal thread, and UNC is Unified National Cross Thread Series, while UNF is National Fine Thread Series. So for UNF itself, it has a better vibration resistance compared to UNC. So aircraft threaded fasteners are either Unified National or isometric thread, right? So how do you measure the threads from the fasteners? You can actually use a profile gauge and a pitch gauge. All right, so as shown here. Bolt fittings, that's talking about hole clearance. They are classified under 3 types: clearance fit, transition fit, interference fit. So clearance fit is actually the hole is larger than the bolt shank, right? Or the bolt shank is smaller than the hole, depends on how you talk about it. Transition is both the hole and the shank is of the same dimension. And interference feed will be the hole is smaller than the shank, or the shank bolt is bigger than the hole. This require strength of the bolt with dry ice or liquid nitrogen. Standard specification for aircraft hardware. This is based on American standard. So threaded fasteners and rivets are identified by AN, which is Air Force Navy standards, and AS, which is National Aerospace Standards. These standards are from the commercial aerospace sector, where AN and MS military standards are from the Army and Air Force standards. Okay, quick release fasteners, which is a quarter turn to release and quarter turn to tighten, usually identified by a factory trade names and the size designation. We will talk about quick release fastener in a later part of the slides. Right, these slides talk about AN fastener. AN stands for Air Force and Navy. The whole statement here, AN4-20A, is actually a part number given for a boat. So in order for you to order a boat with a specific diameter, length, and whether is that come with a hole, you have to use this part number to order so that it comes to the correct specification. So like, let's go through one by one. AN represent Air Force and Navy. So the first number here is 4. The first number represents the diameter of the fastener. In this case, is the diameter of the fasteners. Do take note that the denominator of these fasteners is 16. Rivets is 32. Alright, rivet denominator is 32. So every increment is 1 over 32 for rivets. But for this case, we are talking about fasteners, bolts. Bolts, fasteners, nuts itself, their increment is 1 over 16 f an inch, as stated here. So do take note, don't confuse. AN4, the 4 represent 4 over 16. In this case, is actually 1/4 inch. Right, 1/4 inch diameter. And what does this dash represent? In this case, for AN bolt, the dash represent cadmium plated steel bolt. If it's a double D, the material is 2024 aluminum alloy. If it's a C, it's a corrosion resistant steel. What is cadmium plated? Cadmium plated is a process that through a chemical process, cadmium film is added onto the steel part of the bolt. So it's a sacrifice surface that prevent corrosion. That means you will corrode the cadmium plate film instead of the steel part. Alright, so dash itself represent the bolt material in this case, right? And 20, okay, AN bolt is quite interesting. It doesn't give you a direct indication of the grip length of the bolt. A rivet part number for the is a direct reading 1 over 16. All right, so in this case we will talk about this 20 at later part of the slide. So whether the last alphabet itself, with or without alphabet, okay, represent the drill hole, whether is it a hole that drill on the shank or a hole drill on the bolt head. All right, so it represent various things. All right, do take note that your grip length is referring to the unthreaded shank part. Okay, threaded length is not included inside grip length, right? Okay, let's move. Okay, let's look at this review question. Over here, we reference to the chart, state the AN spec for ordering airframe bolts of 3 over 8-24. I mean, 3 over 8 is a diameter, 24 is thread per inch, and the required material is cadmium plated non-corrosion resistant steel, and we need safety holes on the head and shank for bolting two material thickness. The total thickness is 5 over 8 inch thick. Right, so let's go through over here the rows of information. Okay, we talk about is a bolt diameter. So coming down is over 16. So 316, 416, which is 1/4, 516. Then we have 3, which is 616. We are very interested in this row or column. Okay, this column, which is 38. Right. So that you see AN6 and AN64. Sorry, AN46. Right. So AN6 over here, you look at the statement here, AN3 through AN20 is airframe boat. So the question says that we want order a airframe boat. So in this case, it will be AN6, right? So let me get my pen. All right. So the part number is AN. This is Air Force Navy, and it's a 6, which is referring to 3/8-inch diameter. So now, that either you have a dash, you have a C, or you have a double D. What does this represent? What do this represent? It's actually the material of the boat. So in this case, cadmium plated non-corrosion resistant boat is a dash, represent the dash by the dash. C is corrosion resistant, all right, and double D is aluminum. So in this case, we are very interested in the dash. So let me erase away. And rewrite it now. So it's the dash. So I need to fill out with the number to represent the grip length, of the boat. So this is the grip length. Okay, the unthreaded part is the grip length. So we're interested in here. But before I move on, you do read here. If I want a hole on the boat head, I must add a H before the number. So the actual position here is I put a H because I want a drill hole on the manufacturer head, which referring to the question safety hole on the head, right? So this is where H. So now, how I determine the grip length? The total material thickness is 5/8-inch thick. So using 3/8 column, I go down, I look at 5/8. So 5/8, you change it to a 16 denominator, times 2 will be 10/16. In this case, I need a 10/16. Let me get a pen. Let me write here. I need a 10/16. Okay, so let me draw this, the side view of this. Okay, these are the side view of the two material, which the material thickness is 10/16 inch thick. So I have two to select. One is the 9/16, the other one is 11/16. The rule of thumb is we always choose the 11/16 or the grip length that is longer than the material thickness. Reason so is if you were to order the grip length that is shorter than the material thickness, your threaded part will be inside the bearing hole. Okay, so in this case, the grip length of the shank is slightly lesser than the bearing thickness, so the cramping force will not be able to hold up the two pieces due to vibration or load passing. So the rule of thumb is always order something that is longer. All right, let me erase away this. So when you order something longer, the grip length, what is the problem you encounter would be this. If let's say this is the shank, then this is the threaded part. And when you tighten it with a nut, all right, this is a nut, sorry, the drawing. And your nut will be able to, you're only able to thread and tighten your nut all the way to here. All right, correct, covered up where the threaded part is. So this is the part where the shank exposed. And if you were to live in this condition, your boat itself will have hammering effect. Hammering, keep moving up and down because it's not clamping together. Okay, so it's like a lateral movement, and this is not desired. So what can be added to solve this problem? We will talk about it in later stage and let you think for a moment. So getting back to that, since we decided that it's always the grip length to be longer, so 1/16 let me get my pointer, sorry, 11 over 16. So I go over to here, dash number represent is 12. So in other words, I should write H12, all right, 12 represent 11, 16. And do I have an A? Do I need an A? You can read the question here. Sorry, you can read the statement here, not question. Delete A after dash for drilled shank. So I want this slide further illustrate the AM bolt part number. So most of the time the hole are meant for either wire locking or straight pin installation. So add the letter H for the drill head. Please remember that. And no letter A for, still as per the same drill head. All right, at the head side. Letter H for drill head. If you do not want a hole to be drilled on the manufacturer head, remove the H. Okay. Then AN73 to AN85 denotes as a deeper head. That means the head thickness is thicker compared to AN 5 series to 20 series. All right. So it's referring to the thickness of the head. You see, AN76. Okay. So it's meant for different application. Of course. All right. Can you identify this? AM4-12A, AM4-13A. Alright, looking at it, is both share the same diameter, 4 over 16, which is 1/4. Alright, and both material the same, which is cadmium plated, non-corrosion resistant steel. Only different would be the grip length. One is 12 and 13. We do not know the grip length until we refer to the chart. Do take note that AM bolt, the number 12, the last number that represent the grip length, are not able to do a direct reading. Okay, only AM bolts. And A itself, that means the threaded part has a drilled hole. All right, let's move. Bolt identification and coding. This slide shows the various part number for Air Force Navy, military standard, National Aerospace standard. All right, so the formatting is slightly different, but the part number will denote what type of material finishes, drill head on the shank or the threaded part, or the diameter of the bolt and the grip length. Just take note is these various example shows AN for MS2004 and AS144. So the last digit of this represent the diameter of the bolt, which has a denominator of 16, right? So please take note of that. And various will be the last digit representation will be the grip length. AM bolt itself, we have done an exercise earlier. We do not have a direct reading on that. This doesn't mean that it's 20 over 16 in this case, but you have to read through the chart, okay, for the grip length of the AM bolts. Okay, do take note that the dash, D, double D, and C, what does it represent? Okay, for AM bolts. For MS bolt military standard, I mentioned earlier, the 4 represent a quarter, which is 16, 4 over 16 diameter. And whether H is the same thing, whether it's a drill head for safety purposes. Then the last digit 9 represent the grip length of the particular MS bolt, which will represent as denominator of 16. In this case, it's 9 over 16. In this case, this is 9 over 16. And every next available length would be plus 1 over 16, which is 10 over 16, 2A. Sorry, 5/8. All right, 5/8, not 2/8, divided by 2. All right, so this is the grip length. Same thing, 15 for NAS14. 14 represent the series number. 4 represent the diameter, bolt diameter in 16 inch. 15 represent the grip length, which is also with the increment of 1 over 16. Bolt and nut installation. Practices to observe during installation of bolt and nuts. Make sure that the correct grip length is used. So install all bolts with the head on top or forwards to prevent the bolt from falling off if the nuts comes loose. Right? So if the grip length is too short, then your threaded part will be in the bearing hole and the actual clamping force will not be effective and the bolt may shear off if the load path comes across it. Okay, if the bolt length is too long, there will be a knocking effect. In this case, all right? In this case, so just make sure that you can add washer to ensure there's no locking effect as per the previous question mentioned. So later part of the slide will talk about how many washer per installation, maximum washer you can install. By end of the day, we have to follow the aircraft maintenance manual methods and install the bolts accordingly. If it says that only one washer for this installation, then you really have to use the exact grip length to install the component, right? But the standard rule of thumb is without specification in AMM, number of threads showing. All right, after you have tightened the nut on the fastener, especially if it's a self-locking nut. All right, we will talk about what is a self-locking nut subsequently. After application is done and top value applied, make sure that one thread is exposed, all right, minimum, and a maximum is 3 threads. So if you have no threads exposed after tightening, then you have to check with the manufacturer. That could be a part number or design error. So do check with aircraft manufacturer. If you have more than 3 threads, all right, and you want to control it by using. So these are the bolt head identification marks for AN or special manufacturer. So don't really have to remember all the identification, but let's talk about something very interesting. This type of triangle with an X is a NAS, close tolerance bolt. What's so special about these bolts is anything talking about precision finishes like close tolerance. These type of bolts are normally more expensive than any other normal AN standard bolt. Okay, so this is a cross tolerance bolt, and you of course you have orange dye magnetic inspected bolts. So these are also bolts that use on a critical installation, can be on the engine itself. All right. So and definitely is a ferrous material because it's magnetic. Then rework bolt. Normally we don't do reworking, and the bolts are damaged or due for replacement. Most of the time we will replace it with a brand new bolt. Okay, double dash is a aluminum alloy bolt, right? So one dash is corrosion resistant steel. Okay, stated here double dash 2024 H straight or cross is non-corrosion resistant steel, and what I mentioned earlier, cross inside a triangle is a closed tolerance bolt. Excuse me. All right. So bolts are subject to tension or shear load. All right, and bolts are ideally capable to withstand both loading. And a rule of thumb is a bolt that is designed for tension loading, the head, the manufacturer head is thicker. If you see a bolt that is thinner, in terms of height is shorter compared to tension bolt, then this is meant for sure. All right. The threads used on aircraft bolts are class 3 fit. All right. So they are standard aircraft or standard airframe hex bolts, which is AN3 through AN20. And we have AN42 to AN49, which is the I bolt. This is the I bolt type, right? Drill head bolts AN73 through AN81. This is superseded by MS20073. UNF, Unified National Fine, and MS20074 UNC crossed. So this AN73 to 81 series is being replaced. The difference between AN73 and AN41 between that to AN3 through AN20 is that the head are thicker. So this type of bolts are meant for AN73 and AN81. Okay, it's meant for tension. Okay, especially designed for tension loading. Then you have close tolerance bolts, Kelvis bolt, which is strong in good at shear. This is Kelvis bolt. Internal wrench bolts and 12-point bolts. These are external wrenching. So internal wrench is using a Allen key. Okay, Allen key to rotate it. And this external, you can use open end. The next slide will talk about that. Just take note that these two bolts are very special. They have they are no. Okay, this is a external or internal wrenching bolt. The word external and internal actually referring to the method to tighten the bolts. External, you are turning it through the external hex head. The internal will be by Allen key. Do take note that we have to use a countersunk washer. Okay, this is a countersunk washer, and you make sure that when you install countersunk washer, the countersunk is facing the manufacturer head where there's a radius fit in. There's a radius ending on these two bolts. So if you were to install without countersunk washer, or you install the countersunk washer in the opposite direction, then you will actually have a gap. Okay, a slight gap due to the radius fitting at the shank and the head. So you will have an issue of improper clamping and installation, and this is not desirable. So follow the industrial part catalog or aircraft maintenance manual properly. If you are installing an external wrenching bolt, definitely they will mention what type of washer to use, and based on the part number, order that part number. Alright, that's referring to the industrial part catalog IPC. Nuts. They are classified under two main groups, self-locking and non-self-locking nuts. As shown here, the castle nut, or known as castellated nut AN310. It is used with drill shank head, hex head bolts, Kelvis bolts, and studs that are subjected to tension loading. It can be safety by wire or cotter pin installation. AN320 castellated shear nut is used with fasteners subjected to shear stress only, as shown here in the picture. The difference between AN310 and AN320 is the thickness of the nut. AN310 has a thicker thickness compared to AN320. As for the plain nut, AN315 and AN335, they are capable of withstanding high tension loading but require an auxiliary locking device such as check nut, as shown here, AN316 check nut, or safety wire to prevent it from coming loose. For light hex nut AN340 and AN345, it is used in non-structural applications where light tensioning is required. Also, it must be locked by auxiliary device such as a check nut or a safety wire. Check nuts. Check nuts AN316. It is used as locking device for plain nuts, screws, threaded rod ends, and other devices. Wing nuts AN350. It is used where desired tightness can be obtained by use of a finger tightening, and where disassembly is frequent. It has a normal drilled hole at the tip to allow safety wiring to prevent it from working loose due to vibration. This picture shows a Piper landing gear where it's a castellated nut being installed and secured by a cotter pin. This is another sample where it's a Piper landing gear right main wheel. The castle castellated nut is tightened to its required torque value and secured by a spring pin to prevent it from loosening due to vibration or movements of the wheels. Proper application of lock and check nut. There are two main considerations when we install check nut as a locking devices: shear loading and tension loading, as shown in the picture here. So a check nut is installed prior a hex nut installation during shear loading application, and tension loading application, a check nut will be installed after the installation of a plain hex nut. Also, when we use a spring washer or spring lock washer as a locking device installation, we always place a plain washer in between the dural part. The reason so is installation of spring washer or spring lock washer will result in scratches on the surface. So the plain washer will take up the defect rather than on the actual aircraft parts. Self-locking nut. As we mentioned, aircraft nuts are classified under two types. One is self-locking, one is non-self-locking. So self-locking nuts contain a locking feature as an integral part of the nut. It will not shake loose under severe vibration. So self-locking nut also further classified under two type application for low temperature and high temperature usage. The elastic stop nut is used where low temperature environment. It consists of an unthreaded fiber or nylon locking collar which is securely held in place. Okay, as shown here, the black color here is unthreaded fiber or nylon locking collar. So its locking action takes place because the fiber or nylon inside the diameter is smaller than the largest diameter of the threaded portion. You can see here, this is the threaded portion. So when you screw in the fasteners, the mere threaded part will actually self-thread the nylon portion as stated in the black indication. So it should not be installed in area where temperature exceeds 120 degrees Celsius for elastic stop nut. Alright, and for metal lock nuts, is used where high temperature environment. It is constructed with either the threads in the locking insert out of round with the load carrying section or with a saw cut insert. Alright, so metal locking nuts are primarily used in a high temperature area, which I mentioned earlier. The locking action depends upon the resiliency of the metal when the locking section and load carrying sections are forced into alignment when we engage the bolt. Right. And anchor nuts are installed to facilitate the use of securing screws as for inspection panels or access door. So it's available for high and low temperature application, anchor nuts. And sheet spring nuts AN365 is commonly called speed nuts. Okay, they are used with standard sheet metal self-tapping screw in non-structural application. So example to clamps for conduit, support lines, access door or instruments. AN nuts, elastic stop nut self-locking. As mentioned, this is a low temperature application nut. It's a self-locking nut AN365 and AN364. The main difference is the thickness of the nut. So for the AN364 is thin and is meant for shear loads. So you can see there's an unthreaded fiber, alright, the green color and in this case with brown color, it indicates as an unthreaded fiber. So it's smaller than the minor diameter of the threaded part here. So when we have a fastener installed, the male threaded part will actually thread the fiber, and that will actually uh, create a self-locking effect. And they are never used over 250 degrees Celsius or 120 degrees, sorry, never used over 250 degrees Fahrenheit. So how do we know that when to reject the self-locking nut? All right, the main trick of that is actually you can reuse a self-locking nut as long as it has a self-locking effect. But if you are able to thread the nut all the way to the bolt end, all right, uh, then this nut, self-locking nut, will require replacement. All right, so if I say again, you can use your finger to rotate the nut all the way to the root of the threaded part of the bolt, then this self-locking nut will require replacement. And if you can only tighten with a few turns, then the self-locking nuts is actually can be reused. These are various examples of locking devices available for aircraft fastener installation. Other than lock wiring, locking plate and taper pin, they can be used repeatedly provided they remain a good fit. For split pin and tab washer, you only can use once. Once you remove it, and you need to replace with a new split pin and a tab washer. Lock or jam nut installation we mentioned earlier, and a nylon or fiber insert where this self-locking nut is used on low temperature application. Nut identification and coding is a similar, almost the same part number as for the bolts. So we have AN series. So AN310 represent a castellated nut, where the D represent the type of material, where 5 is the diameter, which is over 16, quite similar to the bolt. So actually works in a pair, where R represent right hand threaded parts, 24 thread per inch stated here. So whereas AN320, we know that it's a castellated shear nut, and dash 10 dash represent the type of finishes we have and material, cadmium plated carbon steel, where 10 is actually diameter 10 over 16. And sometimes without the R is referring to a right hand thread. Alright, so AN350 is an aircraft wing nut, and a B is a brass type material, and 10 is a number 10 bolt, and 32 thread per inch. Right. So you can see that this number 10 actually refer to the matrix type, and for this is 10 over 16 is imperial. So actually the illustrated part catalog of that particular aircraft manufacturer will dictate whether it's imperial or matrix. Right, so the user will not confuse. Aircraft screws. Commonly used threaded fastener. Okay, they have lower material strength, a looser thread fit, head shapes formed to engage screwdrivers, and the shank may be threaded along its entire length as shown here. They are classified into three groups: structural screws, machine screws, and self-taping screws. Structural screw, they have the same strength as equal to a size of bolt. Only different is the bolt in type of head shape as shown here. So bolt itself, most of the time you can install together with open end spanel or combination or socket. But for structure screw, tooling that to be used will be a screwdriver. For machine screw, they are used for general repair, available in 4 basic head types: flush head, where installation of flush surface is desired; a round head, general purpose screw for long structure application; fillister head, used as cap screw for light application. Alright, and this is fillister head, and socket heads. Alright, socket heads they are used where high strength and compactness of assembly parts are desired. Last is the self-tapping screws. They are used for attaching removable parts such as nameplates to casting. Used in blind application for temporary attachment of sheet metal for riveting. Do take note that self-taping screws should never be used as replacement for standard. Correct size and type of screwdriver must be used to remove any screws. There are 6 types of screw heads: slotted, Phillips, Prince and Ree, high torque, tri-wing, and torque set. Please make sure that you use the correct type of screws. If not, you will actually damage the screw heads, and this will result in so just take note that the size and type of screwdriver used to remove screws must be well practiced and observed. Alright, if not, tendency of damaging the head will be very high, and that will result in long hours to remove. Okay, so these are the sample of types of head and the screwdrivers available: Phillips, Reed and Prince. This is a butterfly, is a new style, and this is an old style butterfly. So you can see that there are various type of screw heads meant for various type of screws design. So make sure you use the right screwdrivers type for the right screws. The general purposes of washer, they are used for shimming purpose, to adjust grip length for the fastener installation and the castellated nut, distribute bearing load, prevent gouling and provide smooth bearing surface. That is the usage of the lock washer. Fillet relief for fatigue rated bolts, the radius fitting bolts we mentioned earlier. The type of washer to be used will be countersunk. Alright, and provide locking force between the nut and the bolt, self-alignment, and prevent dissimilar material. There are various types of washer used on aircraft structure installation. The flat type washer, which is AN960 and AN970, which can be steel or aluminum. They are used with hexagon nuts to provide a smooth bearing surface. They act as a shim to obtain proper grip length. Okay, to position castellated nuts in relation to drill quarter pin holes in the bolt. Okay, it can be they can be placed under lock washer to prevent damage to bearing surfaces. Aluminum flat type washer may be used under bolt head and nuts of steel bolts to prevent dissimilar metal corrosion. Same thing goes to AN970 steel washer. Alright, and lock washer AN935 and AN936 as shown here. When they are being used as a locking devices, a plain washer must place below it to prevent gouling of the aircraft structure. Right. Then countersunk washer. This is the countersunk washer. Okay, countersunk washer, they are to prevent, not prevent, they are to provide head to shank fillet relief. So this is installed with a radius feeding bolt. Alright, countersunk washer. Then we have a tap washer. Tap washer, which is also another locking device, where it's only used once. Once you remove it, you got to discard it. So it's used where high temperature and severe vibration environment. Then you have ball socket and seat washer. Is for self-aligning washer. Okay, they are used in special application where the bolt is installed at an angle to the surface, or where perfect alignment with the surface is required. So we work in a pair. Okay, ball socket and seat washer, AN950 and AN955. Okay, taper pin. Taper pin washer, they are used with threaded taper pin, where they are installed under the nut for adjustment. Okay, taper pin AN9. So as mentioned, tap washer is used where high temperature and severe vibration installation. So There are various types of design of tab washer, but work at the same method is to bend the tab. So this will prevent the nut from coming loose. To remove the nut, you have to unbend the tab washer and loosen it. So this will actually require a replacement of a new tab washer for installation. Shear pin. There are four main types of pin used on aircraft structure: roll pin, flat head pin, quarter pin, taper pin. So roll pin is press fitted into hole and removed by pin punch or drift. Okay, so flat head pin, which is a Kelvis pin, is installed with head up. Okay, so flat pin, this is the one. It's quite similar like a bolt fastener, except there's no threaded part. And quarter pin is for safetying, where you will use once and discard after removal. All right, remember that. Last but not least is a taper pin. Is mainly used for shear loading and no place allowed. So it's an interference installation. Okay, taper pin. Okay, thank you for your attention. We have come to the end of this threaded fastener chapter. You may want to read more about it on your notes or from the reference book we recommended you in the blackboard overview slides. See you.